Hi, I'm your host, Erica Polsinelli, and welcome to Evolve by Erica, the podcast, where we talk all things spirituality, ascension, health, wellness, and beyond. I'm so excited that you are here. Come on in. Hi, guys. I'm really excited about this guest today. Rachel, I met at a panel I spoke on, and I saw her and immediately knew I wanted to connect with her. It was just like an immediate situation. She's an aura reader, psychic medium, and it's just so fun to play up in that space together. When you're intuitive and you meet someone else who's intuitive, it's just so fun to learn and to hear everything that they have to share. So that's what this episode is all about. We talk about, oh my goodness, being a psychic medium, being able to just literally see things, how it was as a child for her. She had a period of her time moving away from doing that and why she moved away from it and then coming back to it and how she came back to it. We spoke about all the things like being a psychic medium and telling people sometimes harder things that maybe they don't want to hear, or even just like being able to turn on the gifts and turn off the gifts when you need the time, the space, and the boundaries. So before this episode, I received a reading. It was really on point for what I'm feeling right here and right now. She shared so much about this whole rebirth and almost redirection of my identity, which I feel so deeply. This newfound excitement and childlike exploration energy of what I do and what I share. And she was sharing how, like, with the Evolve community, it's a place where we are all teachers and healers, and I'm a guide. And it was like just this sole purpose of it not being about being seen or there being a hierarchy or being the leader, but truly just guiding other teachers, other healers, and having this space of community that's truly all of ours together. And it was just so beautiful how she saw that in her way and described it to me. And it felt just so super aligned. And I feel like this chapter for me has been so much about realignment into the essence of who I am, why I started doing what I'm doing, why I'm going to forever continue following my soul's purpose and path. And it was a beautiful reading. And she started it by saying, like, this is a safe space. Anything that does not resonate, we're going to throw out the window. Anything, I'm going to ask you permission for everything I want to talk to you about. And we go from there. And it was really just a very safe container that she created. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. We're going to link Rachel and all her socials, her website to the show notes so that if you'd like to connect with her, you can. She's such a beautiful soul, such a sweetheart. And she's just one of those people you just feel so extremely safe and comfortable around. And I'm so excited to let you in on our conversation. I hope you enjoy. We're going to get right into it. Fresh out of my aura reading. I just had an aura reading with Rachel. It was amazing. I met you at the Good Old Girls panel. I can't even think right now. I'm still floating in that space, grounding back down. And I was telling Rachel, like, when you see someone, meet someone, connect with someone, like, we didn't do a reading at all there. You were tired. You just did like 40 something readings.
Yeah, it was 5 hours straight.
And you were like, honestly, like, no, I cannot right now. I'm like, okay, I totally respect that. I get it. And you need to recharge because there could be so much energy there. But I just felt so safe with you. Like the moment I met you and you glow and you had this like green jacket on and it was like your radiance was popping. And I was like, we need to connect. And then I was like, I need to have you on my podcast too. So we planned it all today and it was so nice.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you for having me. I'm like, it was so great meeting you. And I feel the same way. I'm like, when you connect with somebody, you just gotta make it happen.
Exactly. And this community, we have such a special community. Actually, in our reading, the community came through to Rachel really strong. She was just saying, like, there's no hierarchy. We're all in this together. And I'm like a guide for people, but that's just like my natural expression of just being that. And they love all the spiritual things that I love and geek out on and share. So this is the most aligned conversation. That's why I'm like, you need to come. I'm so happy to have you. Tell us a little bit about you, just like a quick intro, and then we're going to go like deep into it all.
Love it. So, my name is Rachel. I am a psychic, medium, intuitive healer, lover of all the woo woo things, astrology, energy, all the stuff. And I run a community called Ora Mer, where just the whole purpose of it is to reflect back people's magic.
So special. And what is the community like? Tell us a little bit about the community.
Yeah. So we do a bunch of like events. I do readings. I do really deep soul work with people like ancestry, lineage, past lives. I like to say that there's no stone left unturned when we kind of start to step more deeply into your soul. And I just want people to see all of who they are and not just the parts and pieces that are pretty and nice to look at, but all of who they are, because that's kind of what changes your life. It's when you see all of you and honor all of you.
It's so true. And there's so much to uncover, and it's never ending, which is so much fun.
Yeah, it's the best. It's exhausting
like, wow.
sometimes, but it's the best.
I'm quite multidimensional. It's like, no, the journey never ends, but that's the beauty of it and life. So tell us a little bit about how you knew you had this gift, like the very first moment you experienced it.
So when I was 5 years old, my grandma passed away really suddenly. And I just remember even like the conversation and how my parents told me. And it was something like along the lines of like, oh, she's, not here anymore. And I was 5. It was really my first experience with death. And it felt untrue. Like I didn't know what death was, but it was like it felt untrue, like to say that she's not here, because I started feeling her. And I remember a few weeks after that, I would start to just see her everywhere, and I would like start to describe her. I would start to like things that she wore, things that she said. I would start to say things to my dad in particular, was his mom, about his childhood, or things that I just couldn't have known or didn't know. And I would start to like kind of talk like an adult a little bit. Like things would just I would just know things I'd never, and I was like, I don't know where that came from, but I knew, I felt it. And since then, things just had expanded throughout the course of my life. But that was really, those first moments as a result of loss.
Wow.
Yeah.
So cool. And he was probably like, what? Was he freaked out?
I think it's so interesting because I recently had a conversation with my parents about this, and I think they thought it was like, oh, maybe it's like an imaginary friend, or maybe she misses grandma. But I think like I was getting really specific about things, and there were things that I knew that they just couldn't explain. And so I think they started kind of encouraging it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
So when you say you were seeing your grandma, can you give me more detail on that? Like, what was that like?
It's so interesting because the way that I describe, and in mediumship readings, this will happen too, where I'll start to kind of see people who have passed. But it almost feels like, when you're reading a book, I guess, and you're just daydreaming, or you like see it, it feels like that, where it doesn't quite feel like I'm seeing the person as I'm seeing you right now, but it almost feels like I'm like, it feels like a daydream. Yes. Or like and I can just describe a person, or I feel their energy, and I could see what they're wearing, I could see what they look like. So, yeah.
Recently, that my grandma just passed, and my grandpa, her husband, passed 8 years ago.
Okay.
And I've been seeing him so much this week. And I'm like, wait, why are you here though? Like she just passes her moment, but he feels like he's right here. And I can't stop seeing him. Yeah. And I notice this sometimes happening like around his birthday. All of a sudden he'll pop in, and I'll remember. I'll be like, wait, Dad, when was Grandpa's birthday? Because I feel his presence. Like it's not me knowing it's his birthday and it coming in. It like comes in first, and I'm like, what's up? What do you want to share? Oh, you want me to wish you a happy birthday? But it's so interesting that like she passes, and I feel him so much closer right now and throughout this week.
Yeah. And I think that can happen for so many different reasons. And obviously you know your grandpa much more than I do, but sometimes I find that loved ones can do that if they want to be there, like if they want to help guide the people who are still here, or kind of starting to grieve and starting to kind of heal, or just are experiencing loss or death, kind of process through, is almost like a familiar energy.
Yeah, I could actually like smell him right now, which is so interesting. Like it just comes in so strong. Do you get that sometimes where you like smell things?
So smell, not so much, but I do, like as we were talking about it, I'm starting to feel like a really intense energy, like physically in my head. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So started around 5 years old. And then from there, throughout school,
So
what was next?
it was really interesting because for the like next couple of years after I was 5, I was tapping in so much because my family was grieving, and as a kid and as a little kid, you're also making sense of the world around you at the same time. And I thought, okay, well, when I talk about grandma, people are happy. When I don't, they're sad. So I would start tapping in more and more. And my mom told me recently that I had a perfectly circular bald spot on the crown chakra of my head because I was connecting so much and I didn't have like any boundary. I just was like pulling on it, on her, on like that energy so much. And I think I started to resent it a bit, like after a few years. And I pretty much after the time I was 7, I like shut it down and I just like shut myself off. And things would come throughout the years, like more like when it was like really intense stuff in family or in life, where I would feel like, I don't know why I feel this way, but don't do this, or somebody's pregnant or something, like things would happen and I would feel it, but it wasn't constant anymore because I was like, I don't believe in this stuff. I pushed it down. I just shut it off for so many years, but it kept coming through for me. And then I became much more open, like later in college, and I just like things just started to happen again. But I was always pulled toward the spiritual as much as I tried to push it away. I was just always guided kind of back.
It's so interesting you say 7 because that it's known that before 7 we're the most open and clear channels, and then like we start going to school and we start,
Yeah.
the programs start running,
Yeah.
and the human programs start running, and it can take us away from that. But it's interesting. You kind of, to me, it almost felt like you were working this full-time job, like being your parents' medium and like trying to show up in that way for them to help them through their process. And I could see how, as a child, like that can become something you resent or just feel exhausted from because it
Yeah.
takes a lot of energy.
Yeah. I just felt like I I love being there for people and I love supporting people, and I think I did as a kid too, but I think I started to feel like I was performing. Like I was like, do people really, I don't know if I had this high level of a thought as a kid, but it's like, do people really love, like, do they really love me? Do they really care about me? Or do they just need me because I'm connecting them with grandma?
Wow.
So I think I started to have those thoughts at that age. And I don't think my parents ever said or did anything to make me feel that way.
Of
I think I
course,
just
yeah.
started feeling, because I think I thought that was kind of all I was there for. So that's when,
So deep.
yeah,
For a
that's
little
when that
baby.
stuff started. So I'm like, and that's a whole other, I think that took me down a whole other journey in life. But that was really the first time where I felt like, where I maybe really kind of noticed that mental health piece of it, of
Wow.
like, this is really impacting how I see myself in the world and how I am, or who I want to be, or how, if I want people to like me, this is how I need to like be there for, and like all of
Yeah.
that starts too. So
Yeah.
it's a lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
When you started to come back to it, what brought you there? Was there a moment, or was it just like undeniable where you're like, I'm sick of pushing this down
And
any longer?
it's so interesting because I think it was like a series of moments. I started, as everybody did, I think I started getting curious about astrology when it started to become like more of a popular thing. And I was just so intrigued by it. And I took like a course to like study astrology. And then that led me to like learning, or kind of trying to learn a little bit more about like Reiki and energy. And it's sort of, I just kind of started following this trail. But each time I would meet like a healer or somebody, it just like, people would look at me funny, or they would like wink at me, or they like, it just was this knowing look where I was like, okay, like I just like, I felt it. And my parents are Eastern European, so I'm a first gen American, and so growing up, we always like leaned on like more like holistic kind of like medicine, so it wasn't like totally out there for me to kind of step into maybe something a little bit more woo woo, a little more spiritual. But yeah, I think I just sort of started following a trail, and it kind of led me here.
Wow.
Yeah.
So exciting. And it's definitely like the time we're living in right now. It's just so accepted, and people are so open for the most part.
Yeah.
There's just like a huge part of the population who is really open right now. And I think energy is this guiding force, and so many more people are going to be turning to it, whether it's for like energy healings or readings or doing their own energy work and seeing it as a really powerful modality. So it's clear like you're on the planet when you should be.
Exactly.
Shining your gifts.
I feel that. Yeah.
When you're around people, how, like, what are your boundaries like? Are you constantly getting information? Or
I think it depends. Sometimes I do get overwhelmed if I end up like in a crowd, or like, I mean, we live, in New York City, where I'm like, sometimes I'll end up like if there's like a market or something going on and I'm not expecting to see a lot of people, and then it just like that's been an adjustment for sure. But I think I typically am very like, when I'm living my life out and about, I'm very like closed off. But if I'm having a conversation with somebody, or if I'm like, it's hard not to feel somebody's energy. It's hard not to pick up on things. But I think I've learned through time just to be very, very boundaried, and to value and respect my own energy. Yeah. So coming from being so connected and wanting to connect all the time to, I really feel like I've learned boundaries.
So it's something you could kind of turn off.
Yes.
If and when you need to.
Yeah. Like if I'm like, I guess when I'm like living my day-to-day life, I feel like I'm not as like tapped in. I feel like when I'm with someone, I'm with them. When I'm in readings, I'm with readings. I'm like doing the things that I'm doing, and I almost, it feels like I'm like, I have like this bubble around me and this person. Like here right now with you, I feel like it's just like, it's us in this space together, and I like feel your energy. But I think if I'm like walking out on the streets, I don't feel it as much unless something really strong is coming through. Otherwise, I feel like I'm relatively boundaried.
Yeah. Soon as we sat down together, you went right to my crown. Like I saw you like immediately go there, and I'm like, oh wow, it's like starting already. Like I saw it. I saw it immediately. It's so cool because I've felt a shift in my aura color lately, and I shared it actually online kind of recently, just about the aura colors shifting. And I told you that in my videos outside, I've been seeing this color come through in my aura. And usually when it's like a very blue sky day, when the backdrop of like the selfie video is very plain, you can really see the aura coming through. Or if like you're against a white wall, you could see someone's aura very much more pronounced. And I'm like, she's going to say this color. Like I knew you were going to see blue in my aura today. And blue was never, I'm telling you, like a year or two ago, it was never a color that I think would have come up. I had a lot of white, I had a lot of yellow, but I felt this inner transformation within myself. And I also felt this new color come in, and it's so interesting how that happens. And it's the first color you said, and I'm like, we're both right. It means we're both right.
No, it's really, really powerful, and I'm just
it's so cool. How can someone else read their aura or get a sense? Like I couldn't tell someone how. Like I know my color because I know me and my energy, but like I don't know how I know that color.
I think that's hard. I think because some people are more visual.
Yes,
I think, and everybody has, and I think everybody has such different gifts.
Yes.
Like very different intuitive gifts and abilities. So for some people, they're like much more visual, or like sometimes even like how I was describing earlier about like the way that people come through, it almost feels like a daydream. Like it almost feels like, but some people don't daydream.
Yeah.
So they might not be able to tap in that way, but some people really feel things in their body. Or some people like have just knowings, like almost like they'll just have a thought or something come through that's just, it comes from nowhere. They can't like find the source of it, but it's just I know. I don't know how I know, but I just know. Other people hear things, or like we'll get different cues or signs when they listen to music or like a podcast or something like that, but not everybody is visual. So I'm like, if you like, I think it depends on what your unique intuitive gifts and abilities are. And sometimes you'll just feel like, I don't know, I feel like I'm purple. I feel like I'm, but you might not be able to see, versus you're somebody who maybe can see and feel or and like just know. So,
right. Yeah, that's so true. I forget that everyone has their own modality of experiencing that other realm and energy. And it's so true. I've been noticing more and more how visual I am as a person. Like the other day, I was closing my eyes to recall almost like Cam Jansen. Do you remember her? Or are you too young?
Wait, why does that sound so familiar?
Cam Jansen, she had a photographic memory.
Yes. I was like
Click,
click,
click.
click. I
Yes,
was like, I went
exactly.
like that. Yeah.
And literally, like the other day, I don't know if I was with you, but I was shutting my eyes trying to recall something, and I literally would see it in my mind's eye, and that's how I was able to retrieve it. And I replayed a meditation I was just teaching, and my eyes were just like, when I channel, my eyes are closed, and it's just all receiving. But it's so true. Like, we're all different in the ways that we receive energy and information.
Yeah.
Have you ever, I know you mentioned like being on the street and like feeling something really big and loud. Have there been moments in your life and in the collective where like you knew something was coming?
Oh, in the collective, I feel, I mean, in the collective, like yes and no. Like it's interesting because a lot of the readings that I've had this year so far, I felt a really strong energy around this summer. Whereas last summer, it felt like, I feel like a lot of people had a rough
It was the worst summer
It was
ever.
the worst for every, like
Literally the worst summer ever.
Yeah.
I wanted to cry the entire summer.
same. Like it was just the
I think
worst.
I did.
Yeah, I mean, it was the worst, but it was just, and
Yeah.
of course, like with collective energy, it doesn't always apply to everybody, but like those types of things where I'm like, I don't know. But this summer, I'm like, I just feel like it's such, I've been describing it as like champagne bubbles. Like it feels like things just are bubbling. It's
Yes.
flirty. It's exciting. It's just, we're tapping, we're like, we have ideas, we're brainstorming, like just, but it comes through for everybody so differently.
Yeah.
So in that way, I think yes, but as far as like like events or like things that are going on in the world, I don't know that I've felt it in that way.
Okay, so
Yeah.
more of just like the overall
Like
energy
an
of
overall
what to
energy.
expect.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah.
I'm excited for this summer. Thank goodness. We needed after last summer.
I know.
Yeah, it was a deep, dark
Yeah.
run.
It was a lot. Yeah.
I went to the depths of my soul last summer.
Yeah.
And it was, yeah, I finally feel like that chapter, and we talked all about this new chapter that you picked up on in our reading. And you saw it and said it so perfectly. It's just like this complete shift. That chapter is finally done, and the wisdom comes with it, and the transformation's here, and the energy's just transformed. Thank goodness. Have you ever done a reading for someone where something comes up that's like challenging to share, and you're like, how am I going to share this? Do you always share it, or do you like sometimes refrain from sharing something?
I think that happens if something's like a little bit heavier.
Yeah.
And it's tough. And before entering into any space that might be potentially triggering, I always ask before, like, is it okay that we talk about this, or is it something you want to talk about? And most people do, some people don't. And I think I think we just talk through something together where I'm like, okay, this is kind of something that's coming up. Does it feel like resonant in any way? Like, how is this kind of connecting for you? And I always say, like, take what I say with a grain of salt. Like, you know you best, like, you know your life. This is just sort of what I'm picking up on, and I could be totally wrong, but we're just kind of like talking through things that are a little bit maybe more intense or a little bit more tender and heavier.
Let's talk about that, because I have friends that rely on psychics for like everything.
Yeah.
And I will get mad at her. I'm like, you gotta stop. Like, she shouldn't be on your speed dial.
Yep.
You have to tune into your guidance system, and you can't call her every single week. But then there's times in all of our lives where I think we want to hear the guidance, and we're open to the information that you're getting or any other psychic's getting. And it's like, I think it's this balance of knowing our own power and knowing the power of a professional who does this, who's very tapped in and who's a channel, and this detachment from what we might get in a reading. Because I've been there before where I've gotten like a very specific time of year or date, and I'm like, okay, so this is happening during that time. And then like you're expecting it, and it's like, and I want to know your opinion on things that come to you, but you're like, take it or leave it, because you might see this play out, or you may not see this play out.
Yeah.
How do you perceive that?
I think I do believe we're all intuitive, but we're also human. And I could be like, I could be wrong. Somebody else could be wrong, and that's okay. And I think there is this energy that when you go to a psychic or when you go to a healer, you're essentially like paying someone or investing in someone in the hopes that they're right, and
Yeah.
their job is about being right.
Yeah.
And so that dynamic can, I think that dynamic always scares me. And that's something that I'm very conscious about, that I really don't want I don't want you to see me all the time. I want, the whole point is for you to lean into your gifts, for me to reflect back who you are and what I'm picking up on. But it's a conversation that we're having. I'm not telling you who you are. I'm not telling you about who you are. And I think that can feel, I think in spiritual spaces, I think there's a lot, or there can be a lot of ego, because you're investing in somebody based on, and they want to be right. They have to be right, because that's how you come back to work with them. That's how so, and if they're wrong, then it's like, well, we're explaining it away, or we're sort of justifying why it is right instead. So I think I'm very cautious, and that's why safety is a huge thing for me. And I always say before every reading, like, if there's anything that I say that doesn't resonate, and you're like, Rachel, this does not, like, we'll throw it out the window. Like, you know you best, and it's not, and take what I say with a grain of salt. And I'm just picking up on whatever it is I'm picking up on. But I'm spiritual, I'm a psychic, but I'm also human, and I could be wrong.
I love that she does start every reading like that, because it's the first thing she said to me. And it allowed me to feel so safe, and it allowed me to be like, there's information that comes in that's from divine, then there's information you might be picking up from whatever else. Yeah. And I have the choice of what I give power to based off of what you share with me, and what I'm not going to choose to give power to. And having that safe space, I think, is so important. And you come from such a place of like not the ego, because you started it out that way, and it created such a safe space, like nurturing space. I also have this theory too, that like everything is energy, and we are perceiving less than 1% of reality. So you could be picking up on something, and just because it plays out in my life differently doesn't mean you were wrong. There might be something that you picked up on. It didn't play out exactly how you may have said it to me or someone else, but you got that from source. So somehow, some way, that came through for a reason. And I think there's different timelines too that sometimes we could jump into that can shift where we're going.
Totally.
And I don't know, like, I'm almost at the other end of like, yeah, you could be wrong, but what if everything you're saying is right in some way, and just some of it is actually playing out in the reality that I'm witnessing, and some of it is playing out in a different reality, or served a purpose for you to say it in that moment,
Totally. I mean, anything is, like, truly, like, anything is possible.
Yeah. It's so fascinating as we like open these doors to the infinite possibilities. There's so much to play around with in there and to see. But I think it's so beautiful what you do, because sometimes people aren't in touch with their intuition, and they want to get in touch with their intuition. They want to receive these messages, and to be a guide and a support for them is so helpful. And in all the practices that you do, there's just so much to uncover.
Yeah. It truly is, like I always say, it's just the greatest honor to be able to, like, to have someone feel, first of all, safe enough, because when you go to a psychic or any type of healer, it's one of the most vulnerable spaces that you can be in, because you're literally putting your heart and your soul, and you're like, can you hold this for me?
Yeah.
And I think it takes a lot of trust to be able to do that. And I don't take that lightly. It means the world to me. And so I'm very careful with that. And I hold that very sacred, and that's so, because I know what it's like to be on the other side of things, to have somebody, like, I've been to like psychics or readers where they're talking at me, and if I'll say like, no, that's not, or that doesn't feel quite right, it's like, no, it is. Like, I know, and that can be like triggering and traumatic in so many different ways. And so like that level of like safety and care, and like I know what it means to go to a psychic, or to go to a healer or a therapist or a doctor, like anybody who holds you in any way. I think I wish more people understood it who are on the other side of things.
Totally. And you can tell that that's one of your values from the moment you start, which is really incredible.
I feel that about you too.
Thank you. So I had another question. What was it? Oh, has there ever been a reading where it was like wild what came through and you almost couldn't believe it?
Oh my gosh.
I know I asked
I
such
feel like,
specific
no, I'm
questions. I'm
like,
like, I want all the
I
juice.
think there are like, I mean, I think that there are so many of them.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that happens all the time, but I'm like, I don't know if it's just that I'm such an excited person where I like just freak out and get really excited. But I recently had a reading. I mean, I had a reading this okay, like a few weeks ago that was kind of cool where I just this person was going to get engaged. And I was like, I like didn't want to, I can't ruin it. Like
Yeah.
that would be the worst. So, but I was like, okay, but I felt that there was like a lot of like celebration going on for
Yeah.
this person, and there was like family gatherings. And so we were like talking about that. And she was like, oh, I'm going to Europe. And I was like, yeah, and I was like, and she's like, I don't know. And I'm like, I'm like, I'm trying like not to. So like
Yeah.
stuff like that. And then she like emailed me and was like, I got engaged. And these parties that you're
Aw.
talking about is like, we're kind of
Yeah.
specific to like what we were talking about in a reading. So there's stuff like that. There's things that I'll pick up on around, like I had a reading with somebody, it was a mediumship reading. And I felt like I could see like her grandmother, like brushing her hair in like a rocking chair, and she was like, I just had a meditation where that literally came through for me. My grandma was brushing my hair, like stuff like that. Or people like I'll see somebody like standing around someone or in a particular way, and like they'll have some like a photo, how like our phones, like they'll show us photos randomly, and it'll be like that person who we were connecting with like come up in that same position like around like it'll just feel like stuff like that. I think everything feels like huge for me. Like I think it surprises me still sometimes that I that I do this. But I think it's just so powerful to be able to just give people, whether it's with somebody who has passed or just in their own lives, like a morsel or a speck of like connection to something. I think is just, I'm grateful that people trust me to do that.
Yeah.
So I don't
You're
know
the
if that answered
sweetest. I love you more and more every minute. You're just the sweetest. How does this play a role in your life?
It's kind of crazy because it is like I do see things for myself, and I think I always have, and it's so funny because as a kid I just like I felt like I would feel like, okay, when I'm this age, like I'm gonna feel like I made it. But I was like 6, 7 years old. But I was like, all right, when I'm like 27, like that's gonna be the year, and that's gonna be,
Oh,
and like,
wow.
so I like just, and I'm like, my life is gonna look like this, and like stuff will happen, or like things will happen, and I'm just like, all right, or I'll just, it's hard to tell sometimes if it's manifestation and or like a channeling, like a just like
Yeah.
a knowing. And I think sometimes it's both.
Yeah.
In my life. Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
What about people you work with or experiences, opportunities? Like, how do you move intuitively through those?
I think that can be hard sometimes because I think I always, obviously I am a psychic, but I think I really honor my humanness in everything that I do. And I think sometimes in my own life that can actually be sometimes hard, or something that I have to be a little bit more aware of. Because sometimes I'll like want to say yes to something, or I'll want to take an opportunity because it's an opportunity and I want to say yes. And then afterwards I'll like feel an energy and I'll be like, oh, maybe that wasn't the right call, or that wasn't the right fit. And so I think I don't expect, just because this is who I am and a huge part of who I am, I also don't expect myself to be right or to be perfect because I'm human. And I think that's, I think I honestly consider my humanness a greater gift than like any psychic or mediumship ability, because I think that's what allows me to hold space for people. It's not that I'm a psychic, it's that I'm a human being and I know what it is to be human and what it is to, experience trauma and to want acceptance and to, all of those things. And I think that sometimes when we're so tapped in, and we're trying to lean so hard or so much into maybe more spiritual aspects of our identity and who we are, I think we sometimes forget that we're human too.
Yeah. And we're here for that experience as
Yeah,
well.
for sure.
That was hard for me for a while. I just wanted to stay in those upper chakras and just be so spiritually connected.
Yeah.
And this is the gift too, just being here
Yeah.
in this body, this experience, and having that human experience.
Yeah.
What are some practices you have that help you to connect? Do you have any specific ones?
It's interesting because I think I just talk to myself sometimes, or I'll talk to energy, or
Yeah.
like or source, or spirit guides, angel, like whatever word feels resonant for you. I think I just kind of sometimes I just like, and it reminds me like as a kid I would talk to, which I think I've recently come back to, and I forgot I used to do, because that's how I used to connect. I would just talk, and I would just say, okay, like I'm open, or I'm ready to kind of receive, or I'm gonna close out now, like,
Yeah.
so I'll just it almost has like this childlike energy to it, like where it's like you're talking to your imaginary friends kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it has that like childlike quality to it, which I really love, and that I think that is actually really supportive for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so special. I love
Yeah.
doing that too.
Yeah.
And it's really this aspect of never feeling alone. Like we
Yeah.
have angels, guides, a whole support system that's with us all the time. And like knowing that we can connect to them and that energy, the energy of the universe, and truly co-create,
Yeah.
it's really powerful.
It's
And it's
huge.
nice to feel into that and tap into that
Yeah.
whenever we can.
Totally. And I get asked a lot, like, how do you, like, what if I want to see signs? I'm like, ask for it. Like, if you want, like, ask. Like, you're just in conversation. That's all. It doesn't, I think people think it's so much higher, I guess, than it is, but we are so connected. And I think
Yeah.
we just need to value ourselves and see ourselves in that way, as somebody who has the capacity to create or to co-create. And I think some people don't think that they can, or don't see themselves in that way.
Totally.
So
Yeah, it's so true. What does a typical day in the life look like for a psychic medium?
Um, oof. What does, I mean, I need lots of food, and I drink lots of water. I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned, because it can be energetically
Yeah.
draining. And so like having snacks, like eating, like before, after readings is really important. On days with readings, I do like a lot of cleansing, a lot of clearing. I'm usually in my own kind of space and in my own bubble. And so I it takes me a little bit of time, like in between readings, to clear, but it usually I'm usually I'm usually by myself on those days. And I'm married, and I usually, like, my husband knows, like, don't come near me until I've like really like cleansed. But it's like, it feels like pretty normal. Like, I feel like it feels like anything else. It's just making sure I'm like being extra like nurturing toward myself.
Yeah. What do you eat?
What do I eat? It depends. What do I eat? Anything. Like, I feel like anything that makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really am not like, I don't know if there's anything specific, but I think after reading, sometimes like I'll have a fruit, because that feels like refreshing,
Yeah.
and but also feels good. But I'm really not. I feel like I don't have, like, I eat what I want, and I feel like anything that really makes me feel good.
And what are some of your cleansing rituals after?
So I have like these special like sprays and elixirs, and I use essential oils. And so I'll kind of use my hands to kind of pour energy back into like a space or into myself. I'll use like Palo Santo or something, or sage or something like that. And I'll spray it around, like, or I'll kind of pour it around my hands, my like different chakras. I think in the same way that maybe like other healers kind of
Yeah.
cleanse and clear energy.
Yeah. It's really so important. And even just like a mental energetic cleanse, that's something I've been practicing every night, because I pick up a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And it feels good to literally like unhook the cords and just let it all go. And even visualizing that, like if someone didn't have the Palo Santo or sage,
Yeah.
just to visualize that, it really is so powerful.
I love that.
Your intention and visualization could be really powerful. But again, I'm the visualized girly, so
Yeah.
that helps me. It's
Yeah.
almost just as powerful.
Oh, but I love that. I'm
Yeah.
gonna use that. I love that.
It helps, especially if you don't have it or if
Yeah.
you can't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you get out in nature a lot to ground?
I think it's hard living
Yeah.
here. Sometimes I do. Like, I have like a rooftop. Like, even if I just like, I don't know, like smell flowers,
Yeah.
like for like a second, I think that
Totally.
really helps. Like, if I'll go to like a
Yeah.
Whole Foods, and I'll just like
Yeah.
stand by the
Even
flower
getting
section.
outside and like the
Yeah.
fresh air, I feel like helps.
It's huge. Yeah.
It feels so cleansing to me.
I usually like have a window open too, just to like move
Yeah.
energy around as well. So that's really helpful.
Yeah. So do you have a certain amount you could do in a day, since it is so energetically draining?
I've definitely played around with and pushed
Yeah.
my boundaries. I'll say that.
Samesies.
Yeah, which is like, it's ever evolving, but It depends actually if it's like an in-person or virtual like space that I'm in. Usually like no more than, I would say like no more than like 5 or 6 readings in a day that I'll do. But readings tend to run. They'll be like anywhere between like 30, 40 minutes in length.
That's a lot.
Yeah. When I met you, that was the most intense day I think I ever had, where it was 5 hours straight of aura readings. And I was at the end of that, I like could not talk. I was not functioning, and I was like, all right, but I learned, I was like, okay, now I know my
what
capacity.
You can do and what you can't do.
Yeah.
And as you started to get tired, did the readings get harder because you were kind of like running out of steam?
No, honestly, no. And I think that's but I think, and I think this is the aspect of being human, but I think I've learned in my life how to push past like the energetic boundaries. But I felt my body physically. I was like, my stomach, I recognized, I was like, my stomach is grumbling. I'm thirsty. Like all of these things I recognize, but I think just because of how I've operated in the past, I've learned how to push past it. But now I'm much more aware. Yeah. And like, I'm like, all right, we can't cross that threshold. We can't do that. Yeah.
And I think when it's something we love to do and it's aligned to our purpose, it gives us energy. Yeah. So sometimes we're not aware of how it's actually could be depleting us in moments.
And I've struggled. Are you like into astrology at all?
Yes, of course.
So my moon is in my 10th house. So I get so much like emotional satisfaction from my job and like what I do for work. So that is always, I think, going to be a very fine line for me and a balancing act in like not getting burnt out, because I just keep it feeds me so much. Same. And I love it so much. So
I feel that.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes we have to push ourselves to do more to like feel that light.
Yeah.
But then it's that balance of like, okay, I need to know when I need to rest and refill so that I could be completely present. Right. And so that you don't need like 3 days to recharge.
Right. And where that's happened before, where I've needed to like shut off for longer periods of time, and that's been challenging. But I'm learning. I'm still like, I feel like I'll just always be learning my own boundaries.
Totally. All of us, right? Yeah. Any advice to someone who wants to be more psychic and intuitive?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that I would say is listen to yourself, because I think intuition is really just an extension of listening, learning to listen, learning like we are, feeling like we are worthy of being listened to, of hearing, of seeing ourselves. And I think a lot of that is like that inner work, to be able to like get to that point where you listen and you find value in what you're picking up on within yourself first, because then all of, picking up on other people's energy and all of that becomes easier. But I feel like it has to start with you, and I think that's the hardest part.
I couldn't agree more. I think for so long I didn't realize that I could possibly be intuitive. And once I started to be like, oh no, actually, like maybe you are feeling, at first it kind of felt like pretend to me, like, oh, like I feel this energy, like maybe I picked up on something, and it felt like playful and like fun, like, ooh, maybe this is a possibility. And then it's like, oh wow, this is a real, sure, like so real. And it's true, like trusting yourself and really feeling and taking time to step back and be like, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling it? What can be contributing to this? I think is so helpful as well, because we can take on energy from people, places that maybe we didn't realize.
I think it always has to start with us, and like, but that's a lot of like, I feel like the human, like the human aspects of who we are, and like all the things that we've been through, and feeling like we're worthy, that we're deserving, that we're not just making things up, that we're, know, like all that stuff.
Totally. Exactly. Oh my goodness. So do you have any offerings right now that you want to share if anyone's interested in working with you?
So I do a bunch of readings. I love readings. I also do like parties, events where I can like curate things like with different themes, different vibes. So that's really fun. I also do retreats, like one-on-one, like VIP retreats in New York City, where I like plan a whole experience based on like astrology, energy work, and I curate the day to like unravel your soul. And I feel like New York is such a playground place for that. Yeah, so that's a lot of kind of what I'm doing at the moment.
So fun. I saw all of this on your Instagram. And the parties seem so cute too. Like for birthdays.
It's so fun.
So special.
And I just like, it's so fun to like create something that makes people feel like unique, like because
Yeah.
I love that. Like I love like highlighting people's like uniqueness, like what makes you special, what makes you feel like just sparkly and magical.
I love it. My
Yeah.
wheels are turning. I'm like, what party can I hire you for? I'm serious.
Anytime.
You might get a call from me this week.
Anytime.
So fun. Where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Instagram at ora.mer, on our website, oramer.com. And those are kind of, and on TikTok too, at Ora Mer.
I love that. Where did that name come from?
So Ora is kind of like a derivative of my grandma's name.
Cool.
And it means light. And her name was Svetlana. And in Russian, Svet means light.
I love that.
And mer is the French word for sea. And I just liked this visual of light touching the sea, and it sparkles, and ocean is healing, and it just flew
That's
together.
why. Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I felt from you. That's why I'm in
Yeah.
love with you. Light and ocean touching.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that.
Thank you.
You can feel that and sense that from the name in itself, but I didn't know where it came
Yeah.
from or the meaning.
Yeah.
That's
Thank
so
you.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun.
And for my reading.
Yes.
Thank you. It was amazing.
Of course.
I hope you guys enjoyed that. I truly feel like I'm still so much in my upper chakras right now because we went from our reading into the conversation and we were just like floating in that real high space. And Rachel shared after the recording that this was her first time in studio in a podcast because so much has been virtual over the last few years. And after we ended, we came out and we have Ashley and Gianna in the room. And it was just like, oh, wow, like here we are, we're here and with other people amongst us because we really went to this space during recording. It was so deep and so powerful. So I hope you enjoyed it. As always, if you feel guided to share this with anyone, that's what helps the podcast get out there and allows other people who want to evolve to find their way here. And you can rate and review the podcast as well. Follow along with Rachel if you're guided to. And I hope to see you back next time. Thank you so much for being here. May the long time sun shine upon you. Sat Nam.